Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How y'all doing today? Welcome back to Mr. Morrow's Algebra class. Today we're going to go over the completing the square practice, our homework. I want to make sure that you understand this really, really well. So let's just get right to it. Remember that when you're completing the square, though, I will give you this little hint again. When you're completing the square, please remember that the key to completing the square to solve an equation is to add b over 2 squared to both sides. That's the key here. Okay? That's the key. Now, the first part of the homework is just ask you to complete the square but not solve. So, number 3. Says x squared minus 4x plus blank. I want to complete the square. Okay, what's my b over 2 here? No, my b over 2 is not negative 4. My b over 2 is negative 4 over 2, which is negative 2 squared. That's it. If I wanted to clean that up, what would the perfect square be here? X minus 2 squared. Remember, take the square root of the first term and the inside part. Put them right there and then square it, and you're done. Number 5. Here they want you to actually solve. So they want you to solve for x by completing the square. So, first step, as always, I'm going to add b over 2 squared to both sides. What's my b over 2 here? Which is 3 squared equals negative 5 plus 3 squared. Again, the reason I don't make this a 9 is because you're complicating it and then you got to factor. I'm trying to save you guys a step of factoring. Okay, it's a lot easier just to leave it in this step and remember that the inside goes into your binomial. So this will be x plus 3 squared equals negative 5 plus 3 squared, which is 9, is 4. Now, we solve, my brothers, using the square root method. How do I get rid of this power of 2 here? So I square root both sides, guys. So good. X plus 3 equals plus or minus 4. Mr. Morrow, 2. Thank you, my brothers. So then I got to solve for x, so I subtract 3 to both sides. This is where a lot of people don't focus. Please pay attention. You have a plus or minus 2 here. So this is negative 3 plus 2 and negative 3 minus 2. So what are my answers here? Negative 1 and negative 5. Done. Before I continue, questions? Yes, sir. I understand that for 3 in the book, they just wanted you to find this value, but I was trying to go above and beyond the book, so I went ahead and taught you how to make a perfect square binomial there. Thank you for carrying those, sir. Okay, number 7. Again, let's solve by completing the square. X squared plus x equals 30. Okay, this is where fractions come into play. I want to add b over 2 squared to both sides. What's my b over 2 here, guys? 1/2. Very good. Very good. Squared. So that equals 30 plus 1/2 squared. So what does this trinomial factor out to be? X plus 1/2 squared. Guys, again, take the first term, the square root of that. That goes there. And then take the inside part of the b over 2 squared and put it there. It's that simple. Now, this is going to equal 30 plus 1/4. Do not leave it as a mixed number when you're completing the square. I repeat, do not leave it as a mixed number. I repeat, do not leave it as a mixed number. Do not. Okay, guys? Do not. You want to turn this into an improper fraction. This is 30 and 1/4 Very good. It's going to be 121 over 4. So I've got x plus 1 half squared equals 121 over 4. How do I get rid of a power of 2? I square root it, gentlemen. So I've got x plus 1 half now equals plus or minus. What's the square root of 121? What's the square root of 4? Very good. So now to solve for x, I subtract 1 half to both sides, gentlemen. And now the part, again, that you got to focus. This is negative 1 half plus 11 halves and negative 1 half minus 11 halves. Hence the plus or minus. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. That's what the plus or minus is for, gentlemen. So then, x will equal negative 1 half plus 11 halves is 10 halves. So x equals 5, comma. Negative 1 halves minus 11 halves is negative 12 halves, which is negative 6. And bingo, bango, bongo. That's it. You're done. Does that make sense, gentlemen? You're going to have fractions on the quiz. You're going to have fractions on the test. You're going to have fractions throughout math. Learn how to do them now, please. Yes, sir. Give me 1 second, please. All right, guys, let's continue. Number 11. All right. I'm sorry. Number 9. My bad. Thank you. Number 9, we've got x squared minus 10x equals negative 9. Oh, that's an ugly 9. Okay, so what's my b over 2 squared? That's right, plus negative 5 squared equals negative 9 plus negative 5 squared. I have to add the b over 2 squared to both sides. What does this factor out to? X minus 5 squared. Again, guys, my brothers, please, it's the first term square root of that. And then the inside of the b over 2 squared. So basically the b over 2 goes there. Yes, sir. No, don't put 25 because then when you're factoring it, it's going to be very difficult for you guys to remember that it's a negative. I would remember it that way, but I'm very good at factoring. You guys still need a little bit more practice to realize that it's a negative. That's why I'm giving you that trick.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So now this equals negative 9 plus 25. So I have x minus 5 squared equals 16. How do I get rid of a power of 2? Square root both sides. Excellent. So x minus 5 goes plus or minus 4. Add 5 to both sides. So x equals positive 4 plus 5 is 9. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1. Does that make sense, gentlemen? You promise? Okay. Now number 11. Well, let me reduce that. Okay. Okay, this is a good one. When you're completing the square, guys, and you have something in front of the x squared, that something is an a, you have to divide that out to everything first. So since I have this negative here, I have to divide that coefficient of a to everything. So I'm going to divide everything first by a negative 1. Leaving me now with x squared plus 5x equals 5. Thank you. Good job, son. Now we're going to solve like normal. What's my b over 2 squared in this case? 5 halves squared equals 5 plus 5 halves squared. Does everyone see that so far? So I had to factor out the negative, okay? And then I just continued my problem. Now, what does this factor out to be? x plus 5 halves, very good, squared, beautiful, equals 5 plus 25 fourths. Now I need to find a common denominator. What's the common denominator between 5 over 1 and 25 fourths? 4. So this becomes a 4. This goes to 20. Very good. So I have x plus 5 halves squared equals 45 fourths. Plus or, no, not yet, Baba. Not yet. You almost tricked me. Not plus or minus yet. Now soon we're going to get to plus or minus. Before we get there, does everyone see what I have done? Now would be the time for questions, my brothers. Okay, I'm trying. How do I get rid of that power of 2? Whoa. Square root it. Very good. So I'm going to have x plus 5 halves equals, okay, let's check this out. Plus or minus the square root of 45 over the square root of 4. Okay? Please pay attention to this. I'm going to do it in red. So I have x plus 5 halves equals. Let's take a look at the square root of 45. Doesn't square root of 45 break down into 9 times 5? What's the square root of 9? So this is plus or minus 3 square root of 5 over, what's the square root of 4? Bam. That's my answer. Does everyone see what I did there? Now's the time to ask, my brothers. I'll be happy to re-explain it, whatever you need. Sir, my brother. Yes, sir, of course I can. I'm a man of my word. Okay. When I have a number, I always going to try to see if I could break it down when it's inside of the radical. So 45, that's 5 times 9, correct? What's the square root of 9, my man? So the square root of 9 is 3. Isn't the 5 left over inside of the radical? Thank you for asking. Great question. Anyone else have a question? That was awesome. Okay, so now I subtract 5 halves to both sides. So x equals negative 5 halves plus or minus 3 square root of 5 over 2. That's it. You're done. You can mathematically, not legally, add a square root with whole values. You just cannot do that. We're going to have a whole chapter on radicals later, but I'm letting you know right now, you cannot add whole values with radicals. You just cannot do it. So that would be your answer. What does that mean? That means this, that x equals negative 5 halves plus 3 square root of 5, plus 3 square root of 5 over 2, comma, negative 5 halves minus 3 square root of 5 over 2. Mr. Morrow, what if I wanted to find a value for that, an actual value, because I had to graph this? I'm an engineer. I need to graph this. That's when you would use a calculator. And you would literally go negative 5 halves plus 3 times square root of 5 divided by 2, and then you would hit enter. And then you would go on the other side, negative 5 over 2 minus 3 times square root of 5 over 2, enter. Sir. Graphing calculator does most of this for you. Does you have any other question on this question? Yes, sir. I would accept this or this. I was just expanding this because I'm trying to be a good teacher and I'm trying to explain what the plus or minus means. Thank you, sir, for caring. Number 13. Okay. In this particular case, if you remember yesterday, the first thing I told you to do, guys, was get the x squared and the x alone. Okay? So I'm going to bring over this 3x squared as a negative. So I'm going to have negative 3x squared minus 6x equals 9. However, can I have an a value in front of the x squared? So what am I going to do? It's exactly correct. I'm going to divide by -3, gentlemen. So now I have x squared plus 2x equals -3. Now I'm going to add my b over 2 squared. Plus 2x, what's my b over 2? So 1 squared equals -3 plus 1 squared. Now what does this factor out to become? X plus 1 squared equals -3 plus 1 is -2. How do I cancel out this power of 2? Okay, now we get to a situation. X plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of -2. Can I have a negative inside of a square root? Okay, it's not really a no solution. It's no real solution. In Algebra 2, you guys will learn that what this becomes, square root of -2, is really plus or minus I square root of 2. Because the square root of -1 is what's called I. It's an imaginary number. But we don't have to worry about that for our intent and purposes. Here, when you have a negative inside of the square root, it's simply no real solution for us. Sir, how about you just put no real solution? If you want to put no real number solution, I guess that's fine. Thank you very much. Questions on that, gentlemen? Okay, let's try number 15. I've got -x squared plus 8x minus 6 equals 0. I want to get the x squared and the x alone. So I first add 6 to both sides. -x squared plus 8x equals 6. I want to get rid of that a that's in front of x squared, so I divide everything by a -1. X squared minus 8x equals -6. What's my b over 2 squared here, gentlemen? What's my b over 2 here, guys? b over 2. -4 squared, which I'm going to add to both sides. What does this factor out to become, my brothers? X minus 4 squared. It's the inside, guys. Again, let's try to remember this. So the first term is square rooted. Then the inside part, which is just the b over 2, and then you square the whole term. This is going to equal -6 plus 16, which is 10. I'm going to square root both sides to get rid of that power of 2. So I've got x minus 4 equals plus or minus square root of 10. Can I break square root of 10 down so that I have a pair of numbers? Okay, some people are saying yes. Let's show them that it's really no. You have 2 times 5. Do I have a pair of the same number? So I cannot break that down. So this is x minus 4 equals plus or minus square root of 10. Add the 4 to both sides. X equals 4 plus or minus square root of 10. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Promise. Okay. Number 17 is a word problem. And it states that the length of a rectangle is 4 meters longer than its width. The area of the rectangle is 80 square meters. Find the length and the width. Okay, so they give you a rectangle, and they tell you that one side is 4 more than the other. So let's call this side here x, and this side is 4 more than the other. They tell you that the area is 80 square units. Actually, square meters to be exact. Okay, what's the area of a rectangle, guys? Base times height. So doesn't x times x plus 4 equal 80? Because 80 is the area, correct? Area equals base times height. So I plugged in the area, and I got my base, and I got my height. So how do I solve this? What do I have to do here? What do I have to do here first, guys? Distribute, thank you. So that's x squared plus 4x equals 80. Complete the square, my brothers. X squared plus 4x. What's my b over 2? 2 squared equals 80 plus b over 2, which is 2 squared, which is 4. So what does this factor out to be?
Squared.
No, x plus 2 squared. Okay. Again, we're going to take the first term and have a square root of that. The square root of x squared is simply x. And then we're going to take the inside, which is just the b over 2, and we're going to place it right there, whether it's positive or negative. We're going to copy it. That equals 84. I want to get rid of a power of 2 by square rooting both sides. So x plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 84. Okay. Before I bring over my negative 2 to solve for x, I got to break this 84 down. So 84 breaks down into, let's do 4 times 21, right? What's the square root of 4? No. What's the square root of 4? 2. So x plus 2 equals plus or minus 2 square root of 21. Mr. Morrow, why does the 21 stay inside? Because the 21 only breaks down into a 3 times 7. Do I have a pair of the same number in 3 times 7? No. So can I pull out a square root? No. So then I subtract by 2, and I have x equals negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 21. I cannot add that without a calculator, and you're done. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Okay, 19. 19, it simply asks you to complete the square. So x squared minus 2x plus blank. What's my b over 2 here, squared? Negative 1 squared. So what does that factor out to become? X minus 1 squared. Good. 21, they want you to solve. So I've got here x squared minus 10x equals 24. Okay, let's complete the square. What's my b over 2 here, gentlemen? Negative 5 squared equals 24 plus negative 5 squared. What does this trinomial factor out to become? X minus 5, guys, squared. Okay, let's go over it one more time. The first term, you take the square root of that first term, and that goes there. Then you take the inside of the b over 2 squared. So basically it's the value of b over 2, and you put it there. If it's a negative in there, you got to make it a negative in the binomial. If it's positive, you keep it as a positive. It's identical to the b over 2. And then this equals 24 plus 25, which is 49. Square root both sides to get rid of the power of 2. X minus 5 equals plus or minus 7. Add 5 to both sides. And x equals 7 plus 5 is 12. Great job. And negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. Great job. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Questions on that, gentlemen? May I continue, gentlemen? Okay. 23. X squared plus 15x equals negative 26. Okay. Gonna have some fraction action here. What is my b over 2 squared here? 15 over 2 squared. Here's a perfect example of why I do this my way. If you did it the way most books and teachers teach it, you would have had this. X squared plus 15x plus 225 over 4. Would you have known how to break that back down? No, guys. Even though the answer is right there, a lot of guys get confused. So I came up with this little trick. This equals negative 26 plus 15 over 2 squared. What does this binomial factor out to be now? X plus 15 halves squared. That equals negative 26 plus 225 over 4. Common denominator is 4, so multiply 4 down here and a 4 up there. So that's going to be 4, 2, what is that, 124, right? I mean, I'm sorry, negative 104. My bad. Sorry, guys. Thank you. So this is x plus 15 halves squared equals, what's that, 121? Yep, 121 over 4. How do I get rid of a power of 2? Square root both sides. X plus 15 halves equals 11 plus or minus 11 halves. Subtract 15 halves to both sides, and you have x equals negative 15 halves plus 11 halves and negative 15 halves minus 11 halves. Does everyone see that, gentlemen? So x equals negative 4 over 2, we'll simplify now in a second, and negative 26 over 2. So x equals, beautiful job, my brother, negative 2 and negative 13. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Okay. We're not going to have time to finish all of them, so I'll open up these last few minutes now to any particular question you might have had. Now would be the time, guys. Yes, sir. 31, sure. Of course I can. Thank you for asking, sir. 31 says negative x squared equals 15x plus 30. Well, first things first, I got to get the x squared and the x together on one side. So I'm going to subtract 15x to both sides, giving me negative x squared minus 15x equals 30. I have an a in front of my x squared, so I'm going to divide that out to everything, giving me x squared plus 15x equals negative 30. Now I'm going to complete the square. So x squared plus 15x plus b over 2 squared. What's my b over 2 here? 15 halves squared, which I have to add to both sides. What does this trinomial factor out to become, gentlemen? X plus 15 halves, very good, squared equals negative 30 plus 225 over 4. Common denominator is 4. So I multiply 4 to the denominator, multiply 4 to the numerator, giving me negative 120. So this becomes x plus 15 halves squared equals, that's 105? 105 over 4. I get rid of a power of 2 by square rooting both sides. So x plus 15 halves equals plus or minus the square root of 105 over the square root of 4. Let's see if I can break down the square root of 105. Square root of 105, if you divide by 5, that's 5 and 21. That's 3 and 7. Do I have any pairs that I can pull out? No. So I have x plus 15 halves equals plus or minus square root of 105 over 2. Subtract 15 halves to both sides. And x equals negative 15 halves plus or minus the square root of 105 over 2. Does that make sense, gentlemen? All right, guys. I expect awesome grades on tomorrow's quiz, and I expect if you didn't understand anything on the homework tonight, that hopefully your questions have been answered. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and I hope you learned a lot.